Staff at the Amsterdam airport had a problem in their hand to keep the airport toilets clean. Often men using the toilets made the floor dirty by peeing all over the place. Not aiming in the right direction was the probable cause. What was the solution? One obvious and direct approach would be to post a message asking men to keep the washroom clean. But what they did was something unusual. They etched a picture of a fly in the urinal pot, and surprise of surprises, men started aiming at the fly, and no more the floor was dirty. The cleaning bill went down by 80%. This is classic nudge theory in real life application. You can find such washrooms at Changi Airport in Singapore and many other airports in Europe. Behavior modification happens when men have something to aim at, and in this case it happens to be the fly. Instead of a direct message, which is often the way education is delivered, if we nudge the youth in an indirect manner, it is more likely to be embedded in the mind. In recent times, a lot of research has been focused on behavior economics. Behavior economics is a method of economic analysis that implies psychological insights into human behavior to explain economic decision making. The prevailing wisdom portrays human being as a very thoughtful, logical person who believes in analysis and careful planning before taking any decision. He is supposed to do things that help him in future. He plans not to smoke as it may affect his lungs. He does not eat junk food. He knows that if he does not use proper pesticides, crops will be destroyed. He observes all necessary protocols to ensure that the crop is well taken care of. Many economic theories are based around this extremely popular but very misleading set of assumptions. The real irony is that such noble thoughts exist only in our mind and not in reality. People smoke despite knowing that it will cause cancer. During the pandemic, such as being witnessed in these times, we see many not following social distancing or using face masks. In Yemen, I have seen people chew a kind of leaf called khat all the time despite knowing its ill effects. In India, both men and women are addicted to chewing gutka or betel quid despite the danger of mouth cancer. Spitting on the road is bad, but it's uncivilized behavior, yet it's a common practice. Farmers procrastinate and wait till the last cycle while spraying fertilizers or pesticides, hoping that their crop will not get damaged. So the question here is why people behave in such self-destructive and irrational ways, often despite knowing at a cognitive level that this is doing no good to them. This is where we need to examine the role of alternatives in decision-making process. Framing the alternatives or choices differently can change and influence the way we take our decisions. Framing alternatives, for example, a bit of tweaking in the context helps change the perception. Do we not know how a stick appears longer or shorter when another shorter or longer stick is kept to it? How to bring about a permanent and modified change in behavior for the good of all has been a vexed issue across the world. Agriculture input companies constantly worry about farmers not adhering to safety protocols. Financial incentives have proven to be of little consequence in behavior modification. One possible reason for people resorting to old ways of behavior is of course the fear of unknown and comfort with status quo. However, latest research and trends in behavior economics have proven to be effective in subtly changing the behavior in desired direction for the greater good of all. Manipulation is a dirty word, but that seems to be one effective way of nudging the behavior in the right direction. In this sense, behavior politics is a better coined term than behavior economics. I firmly believe that the broad policy objectives of various stakeholders in the society, like the government, the donor agencies, the extension agencies, the input companies, can be realized by offering carefully chosen nudges that subtly guide the individuals to a set of desired directions. The excessive use of grants, financial incentives and packages, as we know, have proved to be of little use. The principle underlying the way we act and behave depends on what is now known as the dual thought process theory. We normally operate from two mindsets. The first one is fast, automatic and emotional, almost like a reflex action. And the second one is slow, deliberate and logical. Someone has compared the first to the famous bumbling Homer Simpson and the second one to the equally famous Spock of the Star Trek. Now the point here is that we meet more Simpsons in the world, bumbling Simpsons in the world, than the Spocks. And that means that our strategy for modifying the behavior pattern must consider nudging than direct coaching. It is all revolving around the choice architecture. Our training is often very direct and forced. Can we make it indirect and with gentle nudge? Let me give you more evidence of everyday examples to stress this point. Many people have this tendency of throwing garbage outside the house. The assumption is that if it is outside my house, I'm okay, not my responsibility. One approach would be to levy fine on littering and posting messages that littering is prohibited. Now, if we supply the garbage bag with the name of the house owner written on it, or even the house number, what would happen? I'm sure suddenly people would become conscious and become responsible and take the bag to the bin. Second example would be of eating more than what is necessary. If people are not conscious of how much they are eating, now imagine we replace the big plates with a smaller plate. Automatically people will start eating less. The third example would be of a small child that messes up its room with all the playthings spread all over. One direct way would be to reprimand the child and order him to tidy his room. Now we all know that this will be met with stiff resistance or a cry. But imagine instead we play the tidy game with the child. I'm sure he will enjoy and actively participate in the cleaning of the room. The Montessori system has understood this principle very well in their instructions. But then let me not digress. The aim of this presentation is to highlight how gentle nudges could facilitate the change in the farmer's mindset. Coming back to the example of agri-input companies, it is usually observed that these companies, having spent millions of dollars in research and development and want the safety protocols to be very stringently and carefully followed by the farmers, they supply all the relevant technical literature to the farmers and have extensive field demonstrations. But what's the reality? The reality is, as soon as the demo is over, the farmer resorts to his old ways of handling dangerous pesticides with bare hands. In our various projects in Africa, and particularly in Senegal, we observed that they wash the chemically coated seeds in river streams, endangering the lives of many. So the moot question is how we can prevent them to adhere to the safety protocols. To solve this vexed problem, we have developed a nudge-based push strategy using mobile technology that is aimed at not at the farmer but his immediate family members. The messages in the form of SMSs are directed to the children and the wives, which are loaded messages that their well-being, including their financial stability, depends on the health of the breadwinner. And if he must be healthy, he must adhere to certain safety precautions. This works as a nudge from the immediate family members, and the child forces the farmer to adopt safe handling practices. Using family members to influence and transform the behavior pattern is 8 times faster than more traditional top-down methods. It is also much faster and more effective than relying on compliance methods such as education, legislation, or enforcement through tougher penalties or regulations. This is a nudge that helps subtly in behavior modification of the farmer, as we have seen it in our projects. The key dimension of this behavior modification strategy is to change the farmer's behavior in a predictable way without obstructing any other options, including the prevailing economic incentives. To put it differently, what we are doing is a change in the choice architecture by changing the default options. Let me elaborate this with another simple example. In a multi-storied building with the lift, the default option would be to stand in a queue and wait for one's turn to get into the lift. Now, if you put a photo of an old and sickly looking man at the door of the lift and another photo of a healthy and athletic man near the staircase with suitable nudge messages, what would happen? People would prefer to climb than getting into the lift. What we have done is to subtly alter their default option. The point here is that if an email can be a useful nudge, then through mobile technology and mobile push, we can really bring about transformational changes in the behavior pattern in large segments of the society. It is high time that the policymakers, the educationists, the input companies, and other stakeholders in society understand the implications of behavior economics principles and apply it in their respective domains. Surely, if the aim is right on the fly, I hope you have not forgotten the example of fly in the urinal, then 80% of the spillage in terms of wastage of money and other resources can be saved. The central point of this presentation is that through a set of manipulated choices of alternatives, we can influence the farmer to adopt better crop protection behavior. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, most of the input companies supplying fertilizer, pesticide, seeds, etc. flood the farmer with a whole lot of technical advice and information. The underlying assumption is that farmers would read everything carefully and methodically, systematically, and then follow the protocol as per the instructions and advice. But the reality is again far from different. In many instances during harvesting time, the farmer is tense, not sure if it is going to rain, is under debt. The cognitive understanding of the technical details is far from his mind. It is here that we can nudge the farmer using ICT tools effectively. Let me highlight this by giving an example of a patient in a hospital. He is sick, confused, tensed, and disturbed, not knowing what is happening to him. Now suppose the doctor sent him on his smartphone an hourly update on his condition with messages, what medicine he should take and what impact it will have on his well-being. What will happen? I am sure that his nudge will force him to look forward to these messages and follow the instructions diligently. He will also be more optimistic, which will in a psychosomatic way help improve his recovery. So the nudge is centered around his well-being. Likewise, an intelligently thought out set of messages during the harvesting time would ensure that all instructions are followed meticulously by the farming community. In other words, we are framing the choices for the farmers which will follow intuitively. Needless to add that these messages have to be personalized, customized, and contextualized. This is the nudge theory in application using ICT as one set of tools. There could be many such tools to influence behavior to follow better agricultural practices. While the nudge is the first order change, the paradigm shift will happen when the behavior gets replicated frequently, and that's the goal for transformation in agriculture. To conclude, between the nudge, the hug, and the bang, the former is a better choice for behavior modification and behavior transformation. Hugging implies using incentives, but its impact is momentary. Banging implies punishment, but again its effect is not permanent. Thank you.